Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, in fact, wherever you're listening around the world. It's EV News Daily, Saturday special time, 19th of January today. My name is Martyn Lee, and I'm talking to someone very special on the podcast today, Funmi from 3FEV. Now, they're a UK-based Tesla hire company with 15 cars on their books and now moving into car clubs and car sharing. Are those good ways of experiencing EVs? Is my question. We'll find out. Thank you very much to myev.com for helping make this show. That's the first marketplace in the world all about buying and selling and learning about EVs. If you want to get into the EV market in 2019, maybe you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've been watching those YouTube channels as well, and you've decided this is the year you're just going to go for it. Your very first port of call by now should well have been myev.com. So, welcome to some new Patreon members. Well, 2 new Patreon members over the last 24 hours that have signed up. 2 new executive producers as well. I'm so blown away by this. Thank you so much, DIRK. Now, DIRK RUTSATZ, or RUTSATZ, DIRK, thank you very much. And Mike Rogers as well. 2 new executive producers. Mike, thank you for signing up. Got the email a few hours ago and was delighted. Thank you so much. So yeah, this month in January, I'm talking about hiring EVs and whether it's a good way to experience EVs, maybe experiencing for the very first time, or like me last weekend, experiencing an extended period with a Tesla Model S for the very first time. Why would I have been in one for the last 4 days when I haven't owned one? And so that's what I did. So I hired a Tesla Model S from a UK company that I've been aware of for a while now, a friend of a friend, if you like. But I got hold of them last week and asked them to hire a car, and I was up front and said, and I will be doing it for the podcast. And no, this isn't a roundabout way of saying, hey, do me a deal. I'll talk about you on the podcast and, you cut me a break and give me a free car. None of that. They're building a small business. They're building it quickly. I believe in paying my way. I want to support that company. And so that was the deal, right? So no, I wasn't after a freebie for those that are wondering. And so I spoke to a company here in the UK that started off with a couple of vehicles 4 or 5 years ago, now at 15, and they're having hubs around the country using private owners of those EVs to expand into parts of the country where they're not, but they look after the whole hire process, plus, as I mentioned, car clubs and car sharing. So if you own an EV, and it's not going to be on the road for the weekend because you're just doing some errands locally, then you can put your car into a car sharing club, and somebody who might want to drive, say, a Hyundai Kona at £70 a day can, through this company, get their hands on a car. So that was my curiosity. So I took the car out, took the Model S out for 4 days, and I'll give you a full report on that very soon. I'll make a video. I know, rare for me, right? A video. Get me for the YouTube channel. I'll fill you in soon as well. But for now, our Saturday special is with Funmi, who started the company as a family business, has grown it very quickly, started out with just Teslas, but is expanding. And my question throughout the month of January to you is, are hire companies a really interesting way to get behind the wheel of either your first EV or an EV that you wouldn't otherwise? Like, I haven't got the money to buy a Tesla, so for 4 days, it was a lot of fun. And then I've been at work the last 5 days. I've not driven a car in the last 5 days because I get the train to work. So it would be crazy to buy one and have it sit on the driveway. So that's the question. And we're trying to find out throughout December if this is indeed a good way for you to experience EVs. We spoke to my friend Paul from electricmotoring.net in Chicago a couple of weeks ago. And now we're delighted to welcome on to the podcast Funmi from 3EV. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Martyn. It's lovely to be here.
And it's good to talk to you. Now, last weekend, I text you sort of midweek. You're a friend of someone that I work with. And so I had one of your Model S's last weekend for 4 days, and I went through the full hire process to experience it myself. Wasn't borrowing a friend's car and all that kind of stuff for a day. So I went through everything. And so first of all, thank you. Wow. Aren't Teslas amazing? It's
an experience that everyone should get for themselves at some point before deciding which EV, as it were, to go for. But it's certainly an experience to try. And yeah, thank you for coming to 3FEV to experience that.
So my first question is, how do you sleep at night knowing that your precious babies, very expensive cars, are out with complete strangers? I don't know if I could do it.
We've got 15 cars on our fleet. I think that was something that was on my mind in the first couple of months when we started 4 years ago. And we started out with 2 Teslas. But I think what has, all jokes aside, what has driven my decision to do this over and above everything is the desire for people to know that there are a lot of myths around EVs. A lot of those myths are being busted, as it were, but there were at the time, this is 2013-14, when people thought if you're driving an EV, it means you can only go 20 miles, the cars have to be ugly, but those have changed, and that was what introduction of Teslas did. They did change that viewpoint, and I was driven by determination to see more people get into cars to experience that.
There's quite a lot around a Tesla experience. And so I was quite lucky, actually, that I knew a little bit about EVs. So I was able to, the lovely lady who you have on your team, so Cincto, handed the car over and went through a lot of stuff with me. And she was very good asking me, what car do you drive at the moment? And I drive an EV. So a lot of the stuff about charging, plugging in, how to do it. I had all my kind of RFID cards with me and stuff in case I wasn't using the superchargers, but I did exclusively use Tesla stops. So she was amazing.
I mean, you have to.
You have to, because it's free. Well, it's not free, but you've paid for it. So, so then she was able to focus on things like making sure that I knew how to use the nav systems. I've never owned a Tesla, and all those intricacies. But my experience of having one for just 4 days is they are incredibly technical, and I wonder if I thought, well, actually, I'm getting the most out of the car, but I wonder if some people don't have it, maybe they don't get everything out of it because it's like a giant computer. How do you get around that?
I approached it like I created a checklist that's almost like a dummies guide, and I approached it from my viewpoint because I'm not a particularly big fan of cars. So I thought about it in terms of what would I want to see if I knew nothing. And you have to bear in mind, at the time we started, we knew nothing, or I knew nothing at all about Teslas either. So I approached it from that viewpoint and approached almost a mathematical approach. So what you wouldn't have seen was that Cincto had a checklist of all the things that she had to cover with you to ensure completeness. Now, if you already, which is why she did ask the question, what car do you drive? Because that then helps her to tailor that to how much your handover process would have taken maybe half an hour. For some people, it takes an hour and a half, because we want to give them all the confidence and the assurance that they have everything that they need to get the most out of it. It'll be a shame if you brought the car back and didn't know you could try the autopilot, that sort of thing. So we go through all of that. You can then decide not to do certain things or not to use certain aspects, but it will then be your choice to make.
I must say as well, driving, at one supercharger stop when I was there for just 20 minutes, I thought, let's have a look at used Tesla prices. I'm sure that everyone does this, right? They drive one, they're like, how do I get one? How do I get one? So I was looking at used Tesla prices, and there's one on, it might be sold by now, but when I looked on the official Tesla UK CPO car, certified pre-owned, and it was the same spec. So black, 2 years old, it was a 90D. And the valuation of it was, I think it was like just around £80,000. And I had been really enjoying the car until then. And then once I knew how much car you had trusted me with, I parked at the other end of the car park. No one come near it. I drove at 50 miles an hour. I was like, oh my God, this is so expensive. It is an interesting thing. I tried to relax into, when I got home and I parked at home for 2 days down in Dorset.
Were you checking out your window every
Seriously, Funmi, I was like, I'll just check the car. What I did was I put the car on our driveway, and then I blocked it in with our 2 other cars, because I was like,
you're not going anywhere.
So if someone's going to steal the car, they're going to have to come through me first.
That's something we're now coming up against now in the more recent time of having this car. So in the first, the first year, everyone who came to us knew that this was an expensive car. So that came with a level of respect in terms of how they handled the car and how it was approached. And at the time, the rates for it were reflective of the cost of the car, if that makes sense. So, you wouldn't be able to get anything for less than £300 a day. This was in 2015-16. But now with an increased amount of competition, a lot more businesses, we were the second Tesla rental company in the UK. Now there's maybe 12, 15, and there's a need to be more competitive and prices going down, but the cost of the cars are not going down. They're still where they are. Those cars, we purchased them for just over £100,000 each. And so what that means is that we have to do a little bit more sensitization for the clients to know that because they can now get the car for, south of £200 a day doesn't mean that it's a, £50,000 car, which is sort of the comparative value you'd get if you went to AVs or Hertz and the like. But we've been incredibly lucky. Every of our hirers, we've had over 1,000 hirers in the last, 3.5 years, but everyone has treated the car really well. We've never had anyone trash it. We've never had the cars stolen. So touch wood, that'll continue to be the case. And we do change them out every 2.5 years. So the one you were in is on its way out.
There was a time on Sunday, so two confessions, and this will be interesting. On Sunday, I left it on chill mode because the 90D was actually poodling around town. I had some errands to run on Sunday, and actually, so three confessions. Firstly, I kept it in chill mode, and a lot of Tesla owners will be like, "You can't do that. Come on, what are you doing driving in chill mode?" That's my first confession. Second confession: we bought a new vacuum cleaner, and my wife didn't want the Dyson box in the garage because can you run it down the recycling centre? So I'm afraid I took your £80,000 car to the local dump to get rid of some cardboard.
That's all right. I drive one personally myself, and mine goes to the skip a lot more times than you'd think.
So. Oh my goodness. And thirdly, I had some time on Sunday afternoon, and so I did what I've never done in my life, and that is wash a hire car.
And we've never experienced that. But I got a phone call from I can't remember who processed you back in.
That was Yomi or
Yomi. He rang me and he said he washed the car.
I've been. The great thing about unlimited mileage, of course, which 3FEV do. I had some business on Friday and Saturday. I'd been from London to Birmingham to Nottingham home to Dorset, and then had it for the day at home, and then back to where you are, which is your office in Reigate, where I took it back to. So by Sunday, and it was really bad weather all weekend, so by Sunday, the car was so dirty on the outside, I felt embarrassed, Britt. So I thought, actually, what would be nice for a couple of hours? I had some free time on Sunday. What would be nice, as I love electric cars, I love Teslas, let's just get to know the car. And actually, you do kind of get to know a car when you wash it. You get to know the little... You get to know the little ins and outs, the little...
That is true.
The kind of... the details. And you sort of... You stare at bits of it, like the front, the bumper, the lights, that you wouldn't normally do. So yes, it was detailed and inside and out, and it was returned to you in fine...
in pristine condition. Do you have pictures of yourself washing it? Because that is like the stuff our social media guys will be out,
I'll send you a picture, because it's one of those things that, it's just like, you would never wash a hire car. You use them, you can not abuse them, but you use them, it's a utility. Whereas this was
I wouldn't wash a hire car. I own a hire car company.
This was an experience, though, and of course, the final thing before you go, when everybody found out I had it, everybody wanted a lift somewhere. One of my friends wanted to go to a hotel for afternoon tea, so she wanted to turn up in style. So she was like, "Can you take me to the hotel?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I had to take her, and everybody just wanted to just have an experience of it for 10 minutes. So I spent more time ferrying people different places. So
people up and down.
The point of this month on the podcast, looking at EV rental, is is it a good first taste of an EV? And I think in terms of a Tesla, I would say yes with an asterisk. So yes, hiring a Tesla is a good first taste of an EV, but the asterisk being, please don't think you know it all in 5 minutes. Please spend time with, spend time with
know the car.
Whatever company you use, whether it's 3F EV, you'll get more out of it if you spend time even going through the menus, like
absolutely
stuff like that.
The whole. I mean, interestingly, I would even say that the first stage is to go for a test drive, because if you go for a test drive, it's an hour. You get to know it. And then what we are effectively is an extended test drive, where then what you get after your interest has been piqued a little, and now you want to go for it for, a weekend, a week, a month, if you're so inclined. But you've had that 1 hour test drive first with Tesla, and then you come to us. I mean, that's why the company was created in the first place, because we found out there was nowhere we could have an extended test drive.
It's just brilliant. And every single mile, this is the great thing about being a clean, green company as well, that's all about positive change, is every single car that you add to your fleet, every mile that's driven. And goodness me, I did a few hundred miles.
We have almost 500,000 miles driven now on our entire fleet.
And they're all electric, every electric mile. And it's wonderful.
100% electric, yes.
So you have Model X's as well, and that is going on the bigger scale. What about Model 3? Because obviously in the UK, early summer at the very earliest, but probably late 2019, maybe even early next year to get the right-hand drive Model 3s. Would you want to add them to your fleet?
Oh, we certainly are adding quite a few. I tried it out when I was in the US last year. So we are definitely having the Model 3s, quite a number. We also have what we call our sharing club. So we own a peer-to-peer sharing side of the business, where people add their personal cars onto our fleet. So we have quite a large number of our car share members who have Model 3s on order. And I think the very second UK order of the Model 3 is also on our car share list.
Wow.
So when the Model 3 touches down, we will have a Model 3, that's for sure. So we're really excited about that.
We cannot wait for right-hand drive models.
I know. It's been so long. So, yeah.
We can't wait.
Too long coming, yeah.
And hey, maybe even one day you'll buy a Tesla semi-truck and you'll be renting out trucks as well.
Well, it is on my list because in terms of having that as a transportation company side of things, that lots of exciting plans and 3FEV is an evolving company, so we will always grow with the trends. And it wouldn't just be restricted to Teslas, of course. We've got Kona on our fleet as well, but it will always be EVs. And however EV changes, we will be changing right along with it.
So a couple of final kind of personal questions for people that have made it this far. We've talked about the cars, but the two things that are kind of burning in my mind. 3F EV, what's the background of the name?
I know, it's a very personal thing. So my name is Funmi, as you mentioned at the start of the call, and I've got two sons whose names are Fife and Faye. So 3F is the 3Fs. We get very personable with our clients. We follow up on them. If it's their birthday, we send birthday cards. So I really intend to run it, even though it's an automotive thing. I intend to run it from a personal touch side of things. So that's why the name of the business has got my name reflected in them.
If people want to find out more about the company, what do they do? Where do they go?
They go to www.3fev.com or email us at drive, DRIVE, at 3fev.com. The 3 being a number 3, fev.com.
That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin. It's good to be here.
Well, a real pleasure to have her on the show today and learn more about, the risks of taking a first step into a Tesla hire business and how well it seems to be going. I must admit, I would certainly have second thoughts about somebody driving my car. But you know what? Actually, I'm kind of like Twitter friends with James and Kate, who run or Kate and James, either way around, who run a YouTube channel here in the UK and are big EV evangelists. I've met them once at an event in December. And they've got a Tesla which they let other people drive. So I would like to get them on the podcast very soon, just to get their side of actually, if you do own a nice car, how do you get over that thing of somebody else driving it? Anyway, we'll get them on soon. Thank you very much to everyone who's chipped in with this week's question of the week. You've got another day to answer it, thanks to myev.com. They have set this week's question of the week. Keep your comments coming in, which is this. How much should EVs reinvent the car? And how much should EVs conform to what's expected? Let me give you an example, by the way. The Renault Zoe that my wife drives day in, day out is, I say, a very conventional conformist EV, as in the regen is pretty light, but the regen really kicks in on the Zoe when you place your foot on the brake. So you let your foot off the accelerator, you start to slow down. When you start to brake on the Zoe, that's not the friction brakes, that's regen braking. Whereas, for instance, in the Tesla that I had last weekend, I was blown away by how strong the regen was on that. In fact, for a couple of journeys, I set the regen down to low from its normal setting just because I was having to modulate the throttle in such an unnatural way as a newbie driver, that I'm sure you get used to it. If you own a Tesla, you obviously do get used to it, but it was a stress for me because I'd let my foot off the accelerator and like I would feel that inertia of being pushed forward against the seat belt because the regen's so strong. I didn't like it, and so you kind of have to feather the throttle more, and so I just turned the regen onto low for a couple of journeys when I was in chill mode as well. I know I had a high performance car and I numbed the acceleration, but it was only on Sunday when I was pootling around town. And so, do you think that an EV should reinvent the car, or should it be just a normal car that you expect, it just happens to have a battery? And what's the balance you think people should strike, the automakers should strike with styling, with how they're used, even things like regen, and how you interact with the car as well? For example, the Model 3 is very much at one end of the scale of reinventing the car. It's a screen and a screen. It's nothing else. So send me your thoughts. My email address is hello@evnewsdaily.com. You can always go to myev.com. You can check out the YouTube and the Facebook comments if you want to chip in. There are 176 patrons of the podcast now. I keep having to pinch myself. Thank you very much to all of those whose generosity means that we get to make this show. Our premium partner, our partners, Phil Roberts from Electric Future, that's EF.Energy, for big commercial scale solar and storage projects here in the UK. To, as I mentioned, Paul Hussey and electricmotoring.net in the Chicago area. If you fancy getting out in some very lovely Teslas, check out electricmotoring.net. And Brad Crosby as well, our premium partners of the show. Thank you, Brad. Hello to our partners, David Allen, OEM Audio of New Zealand and evpower.co.nz, Sasha Pallenberg, and our latest, John, who otherwise is known as Beardy McBeardface on Twitter here in the UK. And all our executive producers as well. Alan Robson at Scottish EV owner, Arild Geir Skalsveen, Ashley Hill, Bjard Fuchstak, who increased his support this week, Bob Muir from gingercomputers.com in Dundee, Borislav Borisov, Brent Kingsford, Brian Weatherall, Brian Young, Cesar Trujillo, Chris Benson, Chris Hopkins, Damien Davis, Darren Bird, Darren San, Dave Jewson, David Finch, David Partington, David Prescott, DIRK RUTSATZ, Don McAllister, who runs screencastsonline.com if you use Apple products. You'll want to be having a look at screencastsonline.com. Frederick Rovick, George Clargo, Jack Oakley, Jason Fan, Jeff Urbies, Jerry Allison, John Bailey, John Nodell, John Timmis, Ken Morris, Kevin Mason, Lars Dallager, Lawrence D. Allen, Louis Hopkin, Luke Cully, Marcel Lohman, Marcel Ward, Martin Croft, Matthew Ellis, Matthew Greby, Maz Shah, Mike Rogers, Neil E. Roberts, and the gang at Sussex EVs. Paul Seeger-Smith, Paul Stevenson, Pete Glass, Philippe Calvet, Raj Badwell, Renee Schneider, Rod James, Rupert Mitchell, Sarah McCann, Scott Callahan, Seiki Payne, The Limousine Line in Sydney, and Walter McVeigh. Thank you very much. Oh no, and Zach Hurst. Zach had gone on to the next page on my notes. Zach, sorry mate. Zach Hurst, all our executive producers. There are 361 previous shows online for free where you get podcasts from. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your podcast app to get them first and free and automatically. And if you want to say hi on the socials, just search EV News Daily. You might even come across my WordPress blog where all of these shows end up. Have a wonderful day and I'll catch you tomorrow.